Welcome in Tar Heel Nation. This is the Tar Heel Herald. Before we get into today's discussion, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Really helps the channel grow. Hit that notification bell. And if you know any Tar Heels, think about giving them a share.
All right, guys, let's ram into it. So we got a few guys who we need to note. First, that's going to be that has been out of spring completely and will not be in the spring game. Josh Azudu, Tamari Fox, and Chaffee Brown. Yes, that's very significant for these three to be out. However, they will be back. They're not out indefinitely. So just going to miss them in the spring game. And we got a few guys who are limited. Wisdom Osborough, AJ Beatty, freshman wide receiver Gavin Blackwell, Bo Corrales, Kendall Carr, Tyrone Hopper, Trey Morrison, Clyde Pender, and Ethan West. Now, those guys are just limited, so we can't assume anything. We know Mac Brown doesn't really like to talk much about injury reports, so just the fact that we even got any of this information from him in general is something to be happy about. But let's talk about what I want to see. I'm going to be watching for the offensive line and defensive line, see which one wins. To be honest, which one, mostly in the pass protection, because we know the offensive line's going to dominate in the run game, at least compared to the defensive line. So we don't expect much there. But I do want to see the offensive line pass protection, especially versus the defensive line pass rush, because that seemed to be two biggest weaknesses on these respectively. So especially with the fact that our number one offensive lineman will be out for this spring game in EZ, but it's going to give a lot of opportunities for these offensive linemen to show out and step up in such a big time preseason game, I guess you could say. But obviously we got a lot of defensive linemen who are young, especially since Tamari Fox will not be there. The only veterans who are going to be there is Ray Bahasic, Zach Gill, and Jaleel Taylor, and then everyone else is going to be underclassmen. So a lot of young guys need to show out on the defensive line. Really just looking for depth on that offensive line, but I really just want to see how both of them fare against each other in this pass protection. So then we got the skill guys. You know, there's a few names that we assume is going to be ready to go, but there's a lot of names that we're unaware of. You know, we can't just be limited to like 2019 where we only had three wide receivers out there catching everything. So, you know, Josh Downs, can he continue to prove that he is going to be the playmaker of the future for Carolina? But, you know, the one I'm not sleeping on at all is Emory Simmons. I think he can be something big. And, of course, we got Stephen Gosnell, whose name has been popping out here and there. You got Antoine Green, who's a senior, who everyone says has a high ceiling, but hasn't hit it yet. Hopefully he can get there this year. J.J. Jones has been looking good as a freshman. Justin Olsen got a few snaps with Stephen Gosnell. I think both Stephen and Justin got some snaps in that Texas A&M game, so maybe they can continue to grow. Kobe Paysor, another freshman. I'm mostly just wanting to see, since you got Chaffee and you got Bo Corrales both out, which I assume both of them will be starters. So there's only so many more positions, and splitting these guys into two teams, we're going to have a lot of opportunities to see which wide receiver stepping up. And we've already heard quite a few things from J.J. Jones out of Myrtle Beach there, so I can't wait to see what he does here. But moving on, we got the running back room, another set of skill players who we're very curious about, with the fact that we got Ty Chandler coming in. We assume he's going to be fine with the fact that he's already been in the SEC for 4 years playing some of the best teams. But who's the underclassman that's going to step up? DJ Jones, Caleb Hood, Elijah Green. And then, of course, you got the older heads with Josh Henderson and British Brooks. So tons of people to watch for there. I'm actually very interested to see whether or not these freshman linebackers can come in and prove that they deserve some time on the field. I mean, we already got the fact that they got the best names in out of any linebackers with raw and power. There's just, no one can beat that. But we've already heard so many great things about these guys. And I mean, if you look at any of their high school tape, with the fact that neither of them had senior years, their junior year tape, just speed and power everywhere. So, and they're continuing to show it out in this spring. We'll have to see. Obviously, I believe they'll definitely get some time out there because Ethan West is the backup to Eugene. And then, of course, you got Jeremiah and Kadri. So there's only 3 guys who have been in this program before that are going to be out on the field. So clearly all 3 of them are not going to be, especially Jeremiah Gemmel. He's not going to be playing this entire spring because we know what we get from Jeremiah Gemmel. So we're going to see a lot of rah-rah and we're going to see a lot of power, and I'm excited to see what they can do out there. I'm really interested to see what Jacoby's progress has done for him. He already has talked about how he knows the playbook fairly well. He just had to get used to the lingo. He played it in high school because his father was the coach. His father knew he was coming to Carolina, so he kind of took some of the air raid that Phil Longo runs and implemented into his system, which is fantastic. But still, he himself has to get used to the college level with his decision making, getting the ball out quick, and moving around in the pocket. I think that was his biggest issue. Was the pocket presence and getting the ball out quick, especially because our offensive line wasn't spectacular when he first came in, especially in the pass. I mean, they still weren't that amazing in the pass protection this year. Hopefully he can step into that backup role because you don't want, even though Sam Howell came in as a freshman and dominated, you don't want a freshman to have to be on the field. So if Jacoby can take up that backup role, I'm super excited for that. I do want to see him get a few snaps with the wide receiver ones, even though we technically don't know who the wide receiver ones are yet. Maybe he gets some snaps with Garrett Walston and Josh Downs, Emery Simmons, some guys like that. I don't know exactly how they're going to split these teams up or how they run this scrimmage, but if he could get some chemistry going to help the future of this program, be really well. But I trust these coaches very well because you saw how they were last year with getting all these new guys some snaps. I will say there's one thing that I have talked about a lot in this offseason that I probably won't be paying attention to much, and that's probably going to be the play calling. If you know anything about the spring games, you know for a fact that they're not going to show anything. All they're going to be doing is calling plays, offense and defense, to where each of these captains on each of these teams, or not just the captains, but all of these players know how to adjust, know how to line themselves up. Just they call the plays perfectly to where they can see how these players react and adjust to one another on this field. So when it comes to play calling, I'm not going to be looking at it to see if, Jay Bateman has a whole bunch of new schemes that we need to look at, which I believe Jay Bateman's going to have a ton of new schemes, but I don't believe we're going to see anything indicative in this spring game. Phil Longo, I thought might have some little changes here, to implement the tight end more, in which he may show that, mostly because I think he doesn't have just a great tight end in Garrett Walston. He's got a great tight end in Kevin Morales. I think he has a great future, and I can't wait to see him as well at the tight end position, if he can continue to grow into a pass-catching tight end or not. And I know he's going to be a little bit limited this year because of Garrett. Garrett's just finally getting into his own. So the future of the tight end position is very, very bright for us. But we'll have to see how Phil Longo takes that into hand. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And if you know any Tar Heels, leave them a share.